Right now, I do want to get right back into your headlines as we take a live look over the White House at this hour here. President Trump does say that Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy are unlikely to become, quote unquote, best friends, but that the two leaders are getting along, quote, a little better than he thought. Trump made the comments today while speaking over the phone with Fox and Friends, adding that Putin and Zelenskyy are, quote, doing okay. President Trump explained that he started working on arrangements for a face-to-face meeting between the two leaders. But in the meantime, Russia has ramped up its attack on Ukraine in the air and on the front lines. I do want to bring in Alex Hogan with Fox News, joining us now live to talk much more about the situation unfolding there. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Obviously, a lot to talk about.
Hi, Josh. Thanks for having me. So, yes, as we're looking at these diplomatic efforts in Washington and really globally at this point to try to bring the war to an end, it's a very different story playing out on the front lines in Ukraine and across the country. Russia overnight carried out one of its largest airstrikes in the last month, doubling the number of attacks that we had seen in the night prior on the eve of these peace talks that were set to take place yesterday in Washington. So Ukraine's Air Force says that Russia launched as many as 270 drones overnight, as many as 10 missiles, some of those damaging homes, energy infrastructure. People woke up this morning out of power because of those strikes on the energy infrastructure. Overall, Ukrainians today are looking at the talks that took place in Washington, hopeful but skeptical at the same time as to whether or not peace is really on the horizon. Take a listen.
It doesn't smell like peace yet. I don't think Putin will go for it. He's not that kind of person. I have hope Putin would do it, and I think he could be forced to. There are resources in America to influence him. After all, it's a powerful country.
Today, the so-called Coalition of the Willing, they gathered. They say that their teams are going to meet with U.S. counterparts in the days to come to discuss what is next for Ukraine in terms of security guarantees. There was another meeting that also took place among European leaders today. This was virtually. The president of the European Council, he said that while Ukraine's military will need to be the first line of defense if it is attacked in the future after some kind of peace agreement, that these European leaders do need to come up with some kind of safety guards, whether or not it looks something similar to NATO's Article 5. That has yet to be seen, but those are the discussions that are taking place today. At the same time, the European Union says that a new sanctions package, as of today, they've announced that there is going to be a new sanctions package that will be ready to hit Russia next month. Josh.
And Alex, I did want to ask you, because one thing you talked about there was security. And we heard President Trump ask this question quite a lot about U.S. troops and whether they would be involved. And right now, you're understanding here that it sounds that U.S. troops would not be on the ground there in Ukraine.
That's correct. So we also just heard minutes ago Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, come out speaking to reporters, once again reiterating that President Trump's stance is that there will not be U.S. troops on the ground. There's a lot of questions of what exactly would security look like? What would security guarantees look like for Ukraine? And if other allies are willing to support Ukraine in that, what is going to have to come to fruition to be able to bring something to the table? Because otherwise, why would Ukraine sign on to some kind of peace agreement knowing in the future it could be attacked again, especially if it's even considering forfeiting territory, which again is a large chunk of territory at this point that Russia occupies. Russia occupies about 1/5 of Ukraine, and despite the fact that the territory that we're looking at has been contested for years now, and there have been large evacuations, still some people do remain in that area. These are the kinds of questions that Ukrainian leaders are going to be mulling over. And at the same time, we have two different scenarios that are playing out. We have President Trump and the White House and the administration working to try to broker some of these conversations to move forward between the Ukrainians and the Russians. At the same time, European leaders are holding their own discussions because while they do want these conversations over here to continue to progress, they're being realistic in the idea that if nothing does happen, they want Russia to see more sanctions to try to bring the fighting to an end.
And my
Josh.
last question here before I let you go, there's also been a lot of discussion. We know that President Trump met with President Putin in Alaska on Friday. Then yesterday, the European leaders, as well as Zelenskyy. So does it actually appear that we are closer to that trilateral meeting between Putin, Zelenskyy, and Trump? Does that appear to be a reality that is in, I guess, the mirror soon, happening soon?
Well, I think with all of the events that we've seen in the last couple days, really, not even week, if we're looking at from Friday until today, everything that has happened, it is a moment of momentum, and that's a message that we've heard reiterated from a lot of these European leaders who descended on Washington yesterday, saying after 3.5 years of this war, we are seeing some new progress. So there is a lot of hope. I do want to emphasize that there is still skepticism on all sides, and I think that that's realistic. That is a very real feeling, given that it almost feels like we've been in these situations before where we're nearing progress. But this is the first time, of course, that we have seen meetings to this magnitude, and to even be discussing a bilateral meeting between Russia and Ukraine. That is something that we have not seen at this point in time, looking back to since the war started. So it does feel like progress, and that's what we're hearing from a lot of these negotiators as well. Josh.
All right. Alex Hogan there with Fox News. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and break it all down. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh.